The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. The apostles gathered together with Jesus and reported all they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while." People were coming and going in great numbers, and they had no opportunity even to eat. So they went off in the boat by themselves to a deserted place. People saw them leaving, and many came to know about it. They hastened there on foot from all the towns and arrived at the place before them. When he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, Jesus' heart was moved with pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I'd like to begin my reflections this morning with two questions. First, have you ever made plans in your life? Second, have those plans ever been interrupted? Chances are, at least I hope, that you answer both yes to both of these questions. If not, you can take a nap if you would like. You can take a nap anyway, but I think we all make plans, whether it's for an hour, an afternoon, a day, a weekend, or a lifetime. Whether it concerns work, vacation, finances, education, family. And circumstances or unexpected happenings, interruptions of those plans, seem to take place. In other words, I think we're all experienced with the tension of finding ourselves in the intersection of our plans and the interruption of those plans. Today's gospel vividly portrays this tension in which we all live. And it's the same tension in which Jesus and his disciples lived and knew well. The apostles have just returned from teaching, casting out demons, and curing all sorts of illnesses. And they're telling Jesus all about it, everything that happened. Jesus listens to them and then says, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." He knew they needed a break, and he had plans and expectations about how to ensure that they would get one. A boat ride across the lake will take them to a quiet place where they can be by themselves, have something to eat, and rest up a bit. Or so he thought. His plans, however, are interrupted by a throng of people who ran ahead to meet him and his disciples. And they were there waiting for them as soon as their boat landed. Jesus' expectations are unmet. There will be no quiet and no rest, at least not today. There's only a great crowd of people, like sheep without a shepherd, interrupting all his plans. I think we all know what this is like. The circumstances may be different, unique, but we all know what it's like to have life interrupted. We've all tasted the tension between our plans and interruptions, our expectations and the unexpected. Life as we would like it to be, and life as it happens to be. It happens to all of us in small ways and in big ways. You look forward to a quiet hour while the baby takes her nap, but the baby doesn't want a nap and lets you know it. or a day with nothing on your calendar that turns out to be oppressively busy. Starting a new job and you find yourself not doing what you planned or expected to do. The diagnosis that interrupts your retirement plans. The shattered dream, the broken relationship, the death. Our life plans get interrupted in countless ways, and the unexpected happens all along life's ways. When our life plans get interrupted, it's often tempting to work even harder to make what we want to happen, to reinforce our boundaries, to blame others, to blame God. Jesus doesn't do any of this. He doesn't turn the boat around in a huff when he sees the crowds. He doesn't get angry or resentful. He doesn't blame or complain. And he doesn't ignore or deny the interruption of his plans. He is simply present to what is. I think we often tend to hold our plans and the interruption to those plans in opposition, as if it is one or the other. But what if it's both? What if one is not necessarily better or even more important than the other? What if we could be equally present to the plans and the interruptions? What if we trusted that God's Spirit was really present and moving in both? In saying this, I don't mean that God picks or causes one or other, but that within both the plans and the interruptions, God is present and calling us. I'm not suggesting that we take a certain case or a attitude, that we give up planning or, God forbid, stop caring. I'm suggesting that everyday life, with all its plans and interruptions, is our most important spiritual practice. Everyday life is where God shows up. It's where we learn about ourselves and one another. It's what Cistercian monastics call the school of love, where we're taught patience and offered countless opportunities to act from a deep wellspring of loving compassion. It's where we learn to practice faithfulness and hope amid all the uncertainties of life. This isn't meant to take anything away from assiduous prayer, study, outreach, going to church, or any one of the other spiritual practices. But it recognizes that all these practices are about being in relationship with and living everyday life. It means learning to see more deeply and be more present to whatever is, whether planned or unexpected, desired or wanted, or unwanted. Faithfulness is about being as intentional and caring toward interruptions as we are to our plans. This is how Jesus lived throughout his life and ministry and invites us to live. Let's think of the stories that precede this one in the gospel. Jesus and his disciples, if you remember, got into a boat and leave the crowds behind. And a storm arises. Jesus is asleep. The disciples interrupt his nap. He calms the sea and the wind. As soon as they get across the sea, Jesus steps out of the boat, and he's immediately met by a man with an unclean spirit. Jesus calls the spirit out of the man. He goes back across the sea and is surrounded by a crowd. In the midst of the crowd, Jairus comes to beg Jesus for help for his dying daughter. Jesus goes with him and then gets interrupted by the touch of a hemorrhaging woman. She's healed, and Jesus continues on with Jairus. Messengers show up and say it's useless. The girl is dead. He raises the girl. And he goes to his hometown and teaches, but is interrupted by questions and unbelief. And then we come to today's gospel. It's one interruption after another. All along the way, Jesus is present to whatever and whoever is before him. Whether planned or unexpected, he's totally present to them. This wasn't about just tending to the lives of others. This is how Jesus tended to his own life and wants us to tend to our lives. He knew that the Spirit of God blows where it chooses. That means we're always to be discerning the Spirit in our own lives, in the plans and in the interruptions alike. I'd like to leave you with a question. This is a what-if question. I take it from the story of the hemorrhaging woman who shows up in the gospel. What if the fringe of Jesus' cloak that she reached out to touch is always being made available to us, always within our reach? Sure, we have hopes, desires, and plans for ourselves and our lives. But let's never lose sight of the fact that God also has hopes, desires, and plans for us and our lives that far exceed our own plans, that are unimaginably broader, wider, and deeper than we can ever imagine. Let's never be hesitant to reach out and touch the fringe of Jesus' cloak in all of our life's circumstances. Now let us stand and profess our common faith. I believe in God, Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit,